Welcome to episode 1 of the Blue Mug Podcast. My name is Connor Hatton, and if you haven't listened to episode 0, run back, listen to that. That's kind of the intro to the whole series. In this episode, I sit down with Taylor Fairbanks, and we talk about creativity, his creative process, how to develop your own creativity. This was a great conversation with Taylor. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did. So without further ado, my conversation with Taylor Fairbanks. So that's the name of the show right there.
It's
that's
perfect.
It.
It's perfect.
So it's perfect.
I like how this is. It doesn't keep drinks like hot for a long time.
Not at all. It's a very cheap mug. it's a.
Here's how you combat that.
Okay.
All right. And you may already know this, but if you fill up the mug before you fill it with a drink of choice, you fill it up with hot water. And what that does is like it helps create a hot environment before, because like the ceramic, like it's real cold just inherently.
Yeah.
Be filled with the hot water beforehand and then the drink, and it actually like it preserves the heat for a lot longer. There you go.
How about that?
There you go.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. I'll do that for the next one.
Just a little. I just recently learned that, and it does. It works because we have nothing but like ceramic.
Where'd you learn that?
Here. Actually, you want to know where?
Yeah.
One of our anniversary gifts. One of our wedding gifts was a Ninja coffee machine, and it's the coolest coffee machine ever. Like I didn't know that I had this like deep desire to be a barista.
Really?
Until we got this coffee machine. It's got like this whole manual with how to make all these coffee drinks and stuff. Because you can do classic brew, cold brew, rich brew, whatever.
It's rich brew.
Rich brew is like it concentrates it a lot more to where it's more potent, and it's basically trying to be an espresso shot without requiring an espresso machine, but it's still not an espresso. So I don't use it. But on the back was this like deal with, all right, if you have a glass mug, foam cups are the best. These cups right here, they keep drinks hot way longer than ceramic mugs.
Huh.
Which like
we've been spending $60 on Yetis.
I know,
these.
I know. And so
is this the one that I? Okay, thank you.
But I saw it on there, and it said, okay, if you have a ceramic mug, fill it with hot water before filling it with your drink, and it preserves it a lot longer. So
how about that?
It's so uninteresting stuff.
No, that's interesting.
Don't say how about that like it's something interesting.
All right.
Oh man.
Well, let's get started. Taylor Fairbanks, thank you for being on the first episode of the Blue Mug Podcast.
This is awesome. This is so cool. Shout out to Connor Hatton, because this is such a cool thing. I love this. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. What are we drinking right now? What are we drinking out of our blue mugs?
What are you drinking is a better question.
I'm drinking your recommendation, a chai latte with a shot of espresso in it.
Yes, you are.
A dirty chai.
Dirty chai is what they're called.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing to say. And I never say it. Like, never order a dirty chai, okay? Because it makes you look so pretentious. Because, like, a lot of places, especially coffee shops around West Monroe, I mean, they probably don't even know how to spell chai, much less, like, you say a dirty chai, like, what'd you just call me? So just order a chai with a shot added.
Okay.
Now, if you go to Starbucks, they'll say, okay, so a dirty chai. I'm like, yeah, but...
Well, that's what I did. I went to a local coffee shop. Now, you made your own. You got fancy and made your own home remedy.
I can't say I make it. It's just a specific type of chai blend that you just put in any kind of like hot water or milk. Yeah. And it's so good.
It tastes like Christmas is what it tastes like.
It does. It is straight Christmas in a cup.
It
Absolutely.
Is. We're going to take a sip. Let's just enjoy this. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
Christmas in a blue mug.
Christmas in a blue mug. This should come out in December. So you just got married.
I did just get married.
How's that?
April 11th will be 5 months. It is the best. It is the coolest. My wife is the most unbelievable person on planet Earth. And she might be listening to this right now. So that's why I have to say that. No, I'm kidding. It really is. Like, marriage is, it's definitely one of the most interesting things to adapt to. Like, it's one thing to date a person and see them every once in a while, but then to have them have 24-hour access to your life, like, you don't realize, like, I thought I was a clean person before I got married. I take showers, I brush my teeth, monthly. But but whenever I got married, I realized I'm a wretched, disgusting human being because she's a clean freak.
Yeah.
And so she's Cloroxing our bathrooms 3-4 times a day, washing our sheets, 3 times a week. And I never did that. And so, it is interesting now that she has this whole 24-hour, no holds bar. I have to be who I am all the time, and her be okay with that. Thankfully, she is okay with it, and adapting to that, and just learning how to treat one another, handle one another, the different quirks, the strengths, the weaknesses. It really changes your whole perspective about relationships in general, and that's been the coolest thing, because I've because of marriage and because of having now this full on 360 access into both of our lives on both ends, we've grown to love each other more because we've learned to how to adapt ourselves to the other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, and this is so off topic.
No, let's talk about it.
You can take it all later on.
It's all staying.
But the Bible says that the husbands are to love their wives as Christ loved the church, and of course, wives, submit yourself therefore to your husbands. And a lot of guys, I feel yes, I believe that. Obviously, I'm not saying that there's that it's supposed to be anything different, but I feel that it's abuse because we focus a lot as men on wives, submit yourselves therefore to your husbands. However, I look at it as, am I something that would be worth submitting to? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We can easily submit ourselves unto God because He's the creator. He's perfect. He's full of grace, full of truth, full of love, and all these things. And so that's why we can easily submit ourselves unto Him.
Yeah.
However, is it easy for her to submit herself unto me? And that's why I strive to be a husband that is worth submitting to.
Yeah.
To where whenever I ask her to do something, whenever I'm leading her a certain way, I don't have to question my character in that moment because I've built enough over time and I've built enough trust and I've shown her through leading myself that she can be led by me with confidence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And guys that just submit to me, submit therefore to your husbands. It's okay, with that kind of attitude, I don't want to submit to that.
Right.
I don't. It's you are now you're the Hitler,
tyrant.
Of marriage, and we see what happened there. But it's cool. Okay, long story short,
right? Yeah,
I love it. I'm so sorry.
Let's talk about it. I mean,
it's our rant. It's fresh right now.
Do you think that getting married has furthered your leadership skills?
Oh, 100%.
You think?
100%. Because it's one thing to have accountability partners, which I highly recommend for anybody in ministry, any Christian in general. The Bible talks about how we're to confess our faults one to another, to pray for one another, bear one another's burdens. Everything. There's so much about accountability according to Scripture. But it's one thing to have a conversation with this person each week and give them a 1 hour raw look into your life. But like I said, whenever that light is shined all the time, I mean, it's so much easier to see, okay, maybe I'm not as great as I thought I was in this area of life, in this aspect. And so it definitely does present the challenge of, do you be stubborn and say, well, that's just me, deal with it? Or do you adapt? Do you actually, pivot to where you understand, I could definitely work on this and to be a better husband, to be a better leader, to be a better Christian, to be a better person, So, but 100%.
I think we can just end the podcast right there. We just had a nice little discussion about marriage. No,
we didn't come for a marriage seminar. Okay, there's a guy that we follow on. There's just those wackos on social media, and I love crazy people, man. I love crazy people. You know why I love crazy people? People think that social media have made people crazy. They're like, people are crazy now that we have Facebook. No. Facebook has given you a platform for your craziness. Yeah. We were always this crazy. People were always this insane. It's just now
everybody can see it.
Exactly. Yeah. There is a full on look, and these, there's this guy that we both follow, this weird preacher dude who goes live like literally once or twice a day, and they got married this past Saturday, and within 5 hours we're doing a marriage like Facebook Live video about how to have a healthy marriage. And that's why I feel like him right now, because I've only been married 5 months. I'm sitting here like,
well, 5 months is longer than 5 hours. So.
Yeah.
That's funny. 5 hours.
So
golly, that's funny. All right. Well, I want to start out with a question.
Yeah.
Kind of get the juices flowing, get the creative juices flowing. Where is the line between, we're talking about creativity on today's episode, and where's the line between art and not art? Or something, oh, that's not an artistic view of things, and now that's just cow manure on a wall. Like, what's the difference?
Attitude.
Attitude?
Attitude is the difference, because, this is such a funny conversation because, like, I definitely lie on the sarcastic side of this conversation, where, Jackson Pollock, right?
Who's that? I don't know who Jackson Pollock is.
Jackson Pollock is this artist who many of his works are simply paint splatters. Now they're done in very formative ways. They have very interesting motion within the art, and they lead your eyes to certain places. Yes. But like, if we really look at it, it looks like you just took a water balloon, filled it up with paint, and just threw it on a wall.
Yeah. And
you wonder, like, okay, I can get it. It looks cool, but is it really worth $250,000? Like, yeah,
250 grand?
Insane, yeah. And so
I think we need to go into a new. Let's quit the podcast game.
We're gonna just fill these blue mugs up with paint.
Blue mugs with paint, yeah.
Just throw them at a wall,
and we throw them on microphones. That's what we get.
That line, I think the line is if you can clearly show me the reason and the motive behind what your quote unquote art is. If you have to explain it. Very, like, almost to a point where you're showing every single part like a joke. Okay, that's what. Yeah. If we're gonna, to me, stand-up comedians are artists because they allow you this view into a completely different perspective. Sorry, that's the office phone.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm sure that. But it doesn't matter.
But
first episode, please cut us some slack. It's the first episode.
But they allow you this view into a completely different perspective, and they create humor about certain situations. But if they have to explain the joke, then it's not a joke.
Yeah.
It's just because it doesn't make sense. Not any person on planet Earth doesn't. If you have to explain it to a commoner or whatever, then really, like, did it actually achieve anything? Was there really a punchline, or was it this very misunderstood attempt at making something happen? And I think with art, that line is drawn whenever people get so lost within what you're trying to say that they have no idea. Now, of course, you've got art that is very subjective, and that's one thing. But if you can't clearly show and tell that without actually having to show and tell it, then, like, I wonder, okay, then is this just for you?
Yeah.
Or is there some kind of bigger narrative that you're telling within this that everybody can understand?
Yeah.
So like one of the coolest. Never mind.
No, say it.
No. It's that. No. It's too. No.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about it afterwards then.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about you for a second. Where did you get your start in ministry?
Ran for many years. Okay. I'm trying to be short.
Please don't be short. Please, let's go as long as we need to go.
It's a long, and it's not super long. It's just, I grew up in a house where my father I grew up in Baton Rouge, and my father has been a Baton Rouge City police officer for almost my entire life, while also being a full-time minister at a church. And I grew up watching him give Bible studies. I mean, I'm talking like countless Bible studies. Like, it was nothing for me to come home on any given day from school and there be some strange couple, on our couch that my dad's got the Search for Truth pamphlet out and is just going through this flip chart and teaching a Bible study. But at the same time, he was also the full-time music minister at our church. And so my mom taught Sunday school, and so I was always immersed in this world of church and ministry, and never wanted in on it just because I saw like what the strain that it brought upon my family, upon my mom and my dad, and just what all it asked for, which is everything.
Yeah.
And when you're growing up and you see that within your family, you kind of wonder, like, is this really worth it? Or maybe I can just do what I did for the longest time and just play drums in the church band and just kind of slide on by and go get my education and live a separate life. I was 16 years old, and I was a junior in high school, and that was my plan. I was going to go to LSU, get my degree, go to med school, either become a neuro or a cardio surgeon, and live that life. Because it just seemed like I loved math, I loved science, and Dad always preached to me about doing something in the medical field, never be a police officer, or anything with law, and do that. I was like, okay, I'll do that. My junior year, I got expelled of high school, and it was because I brought prescription drugs to school, and a kid in my class asked for some, and I was, in my mind, they were like Tylenol. I was like, sure, have 5. Like, literally, that was like, and so it was because I had my wisdom teeth taken out. That's what I had. Yeah.
Okay. And I thought you were, dealing.
No, it was, and that's what it looked like on paper. Yeah. That's what it looked like I was dealing. Yeah. And, but no, it was just prescription medicine that I brought to school with me in case I caught some awful pains with my teeth. Yeah. And, so I don't know if like a teacher reported it, or if a student saw it and reported it to a teacher. I'm not sure. Still don't know to this day. But all I know is I called in the office that afternoon, and the kid that I gave the medicine to was in there, and bro, like, his knees, I kid you not, his feet were coming like a foot off the ground. His knees were just shaking so bad. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? And they got the pills there. And even like a whole encyclopedia of drugs turned to the very page where that pill was, and said, this is this kind of drug. Why, what's going on? And it was, even after explaining it, they couldn't justify it. Yeah. Like, you are distributing. And so, by the end of that Monday, I had walked in that morning thinking that everything was going to be fine. I was 4.0 student. I was a class favorite that year. And by the end of the day, I was expelled.
Oh my gosh.
And told that I wouldn't be allowed at any public school in Louisiana. And so, this came to a surprise to my parents.
I imagine.
And we had to go through a pretty rough process of trying to find out what the future was for me. And I'll never forget that day. My mom shows up, and it hadn't really hit me until she showed up. Until that point, like, I'm thinking, because I'm a major teacher's pet, still am a teacher's pet. Like, I will absolutely, like, suck up hardcore just because I it's just, I don't know. But I like being on people's good side. Yeah. That's just me. And so I'm thinking, I can talk my way out of this. Surely I can talk my way out of this. And then my mom shows up, and it literally was like a movie scene. I see her walk in the door of the office at the same time that the principal is sliding the paper to my side of the desk that I was supposed to sign as like the agreement of expulsion. And I see my mom crying this paper, and bro, my mama's boy. And so I see my mom crying, and I'm just like, the whole world just like cracked, and I just lost it. I just started sobbing at that desk and signed it, and she informed me on the way home through tears that my dad was already at the house.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
Dude, my dad is...
See, that's where my world would have cracked. There's no way. You know, your dad's home.
Dad's a detective for Baton Rouge City Police. Dad is a contractor. You know, he builds homes, and so he's got this whole like portfolio of body language and being able to read you and be able to interrogate you, plus this like man's man, like he can get in and build a house. On top of all that, he's been serving God faithfully for like 25 years. And so growing up, I could never get away with anything, because if my body language didn't give it away, Jesus told him. And so like nothing. And so the whole way home, like, I mean, and my dad believed in the rod of correction. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, dear, oh,
I think if you grew up in the South, you learned the
absolutely
rod of correction.
I'm thinking I'm about to get, I'm about to be separated in two. I have no idea what is waiting, and I can't. I'm trying not to get emotional, but I get there that day, get back to the house. My dad's outside waiting, and here I am thinking I'm about to just get like ripped into. Mm-hmm. And I get out of the car, and my dad just opens up his arms, and he just embraces me and says, "We're gonna get through this." And that's just who my dad was. Yeah. And that was one of the first times in my life where I was at such a low that I would have never expected to be in, that I knew it was the first God moment in my life, where as my dad embraced me, I felt the love of God just wrap me up. And I went into a severe depression because I didn't know what was going to happen. Thankfully, and this is an act of God. Within a week, this happened on a Monday. By that next Monday, my parents had found a private school in central Louisiana that was a part of a Mississippi private school organization. So on paper, they were in Mississippi, but in actuality, they were 30 minutes from our house. And we met with that principal later on that week that I was expelled, and she said, "I just look at this as a mistake made, and I believe in grace. And so you are more than welcome to finish out your education, your high school education here." And so Monday I'm expelled. By the next Monday, I'm back in school. Yeah. Which was like, oh my God. But so God's hand was in it. And I still, though, went through severe depression, was suicidal. And because I just, the whole world that I had built was now gone. I wasn't going to graduate with these friends that I knew all my life. I've been basically blacklisted because all their family, all their parents thought that I was a drug dealing, scum. Like everything just completely changed. And I was oppressed. I didn't know if I was even going to be able to graduate with the same kind of tuition and scholarships that I had at my old high school, thinking that I was going to have to, maybe just graduate and go straight to work. And so life completely changed, and I didn't really know how to handle it. So I internalized everything. And that next summer, go to church camp, because, church camp just has this thing, this way of being the refuge. And it was in an altar service. It was a Wednesday night. This pastor from Ohio preached. His name is Michael Yadernacek. He preached a message called "Removing Obstacles to Revelation." And he just had the whole platform just covered in just these overturned chairs and desks and just stuff everywhere. And he just preaches how like our life can be so full of stuff that can keep us from revelation, that can keep us. He was Czechoslovakian. and he always had this raspy voice.
Yeah.
And he just preached. And you have all this stuff.
Sounds like the grandmas from The Simpsons.
but he's just got like this like very unique voice. I can still hear it in my mind. Yeah. And he just talks about how God will be on the other side of these obstacles of revelation. And as soon as you get beyond that, you can see and experience God in this new way. And bro, it was where I was. I realized that I had this whole world of stuff built around me that I never really had a walk with God. And I grew up in this thing for, at this point, almost 17 years. And so I go and just weep at the altar in the state of repentance. And this guy that I had just met that week, he didn't know nothing about my life. He didn't know me from Adam. He comes up in the altar and speaks a word of prophecy in my life. And he calls out the expulsion. He calls out the depression. He calls out the suicidal thoughts. I mean, bro, he reads my mail and just starts prophesying about what God's going to turn it into and what God's going to do. And that was the second God moment in my life where I just felt this incredible tug in the spirit. And that was just one of the most life-changing nights of my life. And then it was compounded by my first mission trip, which was that year as well. I went to Chile with my pastor at the time, and he was preaching a conference there. And it was this convention center with, like, bro, it was only supposed to hold 5,000, but it had, like, I can't remember the final count. It was something like 8,000 to 9,000 people just packed.
Wow.
It was so packed where first of all, they worshiped like 3 or 4 hours before preaching even happened. And we were down there in the altar for one of those worship services, and it was so crammed full of people that while the music was going and people were jumping, you had no choice. Like, you were so tight. like if you went against the rhythm there, like, you're dead. Like, you're about to get stomped on by 1,000 Chilean dudes in an altar. Like, they're just sweating all over you. They're just in it, man. Gosh. And it was so cool because every time that the songs would end by the worship band, they would start chanting the next song. Like, one guy would start chanting a song, and then it just spread, and they'd all be singing a song. Yeah. And basically force the worship band to have to start singing. It was like a worship riot. And it was awesome. Yeah. But in one of those services, just looking out across this crowd of like these people who rode on buses and walked hundreds of miles to get there, to see like that desperation. It was the first time where I just felt this overwhelming desire to reach people. And as soon as we got back from that church, or that trip, is where I met with my pastor. I was like, I want to do it. I just, whatever I've got to do, I want to get in this thing.
How old were you at the time?
This was 16. Yeah, all this happened. It was
this is all around the same time.
Yeah, okay. All of this. So that, I mean, it was November that I got expelled. That following summer was that camp, and this was like within a few weeks of that camp. Yeah. And so all of it like within about a year, and so
wow.
I talked to him, and he was like, "All right, you're gonna teach kids church on Wednesdays for 3 months," and I was like, "No, I'm not."
How do you take that?
No, I didn't say it, but in my mind, I was like, I thought I was going to get a pulpit, but I taught kids for 3 months, and it was awful. I'm not a kids minister. Kudos to every kids minister. We got one of the best here at our church, Brian and Cheyenne, and I can't do it, man. I don't have the gracious.
That's a tough job.
Yeah.
That is a tough job.
But that was the launch. That was it.
Wow.
So
That's awesome.
I know it's such a long story. And I
No, it's
apologize,
okay.
But
It's okay. What are we at? 3 hours now? Okay. I'm just kidding. So today's show, creativity. We said that earlier. Where does your creativity come from? What's your process?
The worst thing for somebody to find out. There's two worst things for somebody to find out about you. Is either one, people think you're funny, or two, people think you're creative. Because as soon as people find that out, they want you to be that right there.
Yeah.
Like,
tell me a joke.
You tell you a joke. Yeah. It's like that. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that.
You're a funny boy. Tell me a joke.
Exactly. I'm like, knock, knock. I don't know. I can't tell jokes, bro. I'm not a joke teller.
Yeah.
I'm, and I don't even think I'm that funny. Like, I don't. Like, they get me to this late night stuff. I'm not funny. I'm not. I just, I do things in a very strange way and people think it's funny. And that's like,
well, I think that's what, it's a different way that somebody does it. So, it's funny. That guy's funny.
Yeah.
So he runs across the stage instead of walks across the stage.
And that's where I think I go back to kind of what I said about comedians is perspective. It's perspective. Something that a lot of people ask is, well, is creativity something that you're born with, or is it something that just happens? And
you just took one of my questions.
I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay, but I'm glad let's jump into it. Let's talk about it.
Well, I think both of those things, what you asked about the process versus the birthing of creativity, like where does it happen? I think they run within that same thread because creativity isn't I don't think anybody's born with it, but I think it's born through them in struggle, in adversity. In things that happen in life, especially early on. Me growing up, I was a chubster, straight up.
Really?
I shop the Husky jeans at Walmart, absolutely. And so and that's not. There's nothing. I don't want anybody to get upset over me saying that. Like I'm not. This is no dig at people that live large and in charge. It's like that's who I was. And when you're young though, let's just be honest here. When kids are mean. Oh, they're so mean, dude. And I grew up being called names every single day. I grew up as an outcast. People see me now and they're like, "There's no way." And then I show them these pictures. Like I'll show you pictures right now. I got them on me. People don't believe it, but I did. I grew up looking very differently than I did now, or do now rather. And I used to start crying. I would come home crying because on the bus, kids would call me the Pillsbury Doughboy. I know it's like stop laughing, dude. This is really
this is a serious
sensitive topic. But no, like that was my life. That was my life until puberty hit at 18, and it was 7th, 8th grade. I started just rocketing up. Oh my gosh, of course I can't find the pictures right now.
I know what you're talking about with the kids being. I had these red Converse when I was younger.
Yeah,
and these girls would always come up to me and say, "What's up, tomato feet?" They would call me tomato feet. And
that's so dumb. It's not even like a.
But I sat there and I was like, I ain't got tomato feet. Like, why am I just thought they were stylish, but
I don't have tomato feet.
Okay, tomato feet. You got tomato.
You ready for this?
Yeah, let me see it.
You ready for this? Boom.
That's not you.
That's me. That is me.
Oh my gosh, man.
I know, and there.
And I say, oh my gosh. You're not. You just look totally different.
Right.
It's two different people.
Right. And so when you look at me, you don't look at somebody that's always been this tall, lanky, clumsy white boy.
Yeah.
Like I was literally the polar opposite in terms of in terms of shape and size growing up. And people just railed me, man. Like, I had no friends except for my Nintendo 64. Like, that was my best friend.
It's a good friend.
Yeah. Me, the Nintendo 64, and The Legend of Zelda. Like, that was my childhood.
Which one?
Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
Every day, all day, Ocarina of Time. And so I had to learn that my looks, like all these people that are born pretty, God bless them. God, and you know what? Thank God for it, because I didn't get that pleasure. My looks weren't going to take me anywhere. My looks would take me about as far from me to you right now, and that's it. I wasn't shooting the stars and getting anywhere with attractiveness. No. Right. I learned.
I said right. I didn't mean to say right. You're ugly. I'm just saying yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Like we can be honest. We can be real. But I had to learn to like make people laugh. The first group laugh I ever got.
Feels good, doesn't it?
Oh man, the first one was something happened where I spilt pepper on the cafeteria lunch table, and somebody was like, "You're gonna clean that up?" I said, "Yeah." And so I took my nose, I put it on the table, and I snorted the black pepper. And everybody, and then like I just started coughing and just like losing my, because like, I mean, it was the dumbest thing ever. But everybody lost it. They all, just like this, and they lost it. And they were like, "Do it again." And like this thing just clicked in my mind. I have their attention. I have their attention. Exactly. I have friends. I have friends now. And so I did it like 2 or 3 times. I just like sat there and kept snorting pepper. Because it made people laugh.
But you got expelled for the pills. I wouldn't expel you for that. We have insane kids at our school. Let's come out here.
That's a very good point. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So yeah, like that's where I just I channeled this outcast Taylor through humor and stupidity into this likable Taylor, at least what I thought was likable. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's where that's to me, anybody that's quote unquote creative. If people have to tell you that they're funny, or if people have to tell you that they're creative, probably not.
I'm a funny guy.
Yeah. I'm a funny guy. It's like,
no, you're not.
I've been talking to you for an hour. You haven't made me laugh once.
Yeah.
But like it's filtered through these experiences and emotions that you've had to find out how to get away from them. Like, I mean, if we're just gonna be completely honest, I was funny to get away from the reality of deep down, like I knew that I didn't really have a lot of friends. And so this was my way of trying to gain friends.
Yeah.
And that's, it turned into this like weird thing, you know, especially like in the later years of high school and early years of college, of trying to balance like who is the real Taylor? Like, will he please stand up?
Yeah.
You know, but like just understanding that like I don't have to be funny all the time for people to like me. Like, so the process, I know that's such a, I answered that question to lead to this question about the process and where does it come from. I would say that it just, it's spontaneous. Like I can sit here and try and think about things to be creative about, and think about, you know, this lineup and this way to have a night of late night entertainment to make people laugh and enjoy themselves. But really, like, it is only born in these moments where a part of that feeling resurfaces back in your life, and you're able to use that. And if you can channel it in the best way, and you creatively allow it to be the outlet in the different situations and use it for, you know, the betterment of people around you, and that's the challenge. That's the balance that you got to try and find. But yeah. So,
and that's interesting that you said you did it so that people would get people would laugh. People would, I guess, notice you.
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of artists do. Like a lot of like musicians and filmmakers and actors or comedians. Comedians, I think, is the prime example. I've heard a lot of them. I like to watch interviews. That's why I started a podcast. But the main thing that I hear all of them say is that they have a troubled past, or they're still troubled now, and that's their outlet. They'll make fun of it. They'll say, "Look, they laugh at me because I don't get this anywhere else."
Right.
And but then where do you draw the line? Where these people aren't laughing with me; they're laughing at me.
Exactly.
I grew up with kids in high school. I'm still 21 years old. I'm not fully grown yet.
You're getting to that weird place.
I am. It's a weird
being
place.
In that weird state of like you are on the cusp of the end of like this era of life. Like, because 20 years, I mean, that's edging on a generation, and now you're watching as younger people grow up, like different things that they do differently, and that's
exactly.
That's
we were me and my friend, we were talking about this the other day. Her brother was going to prom, and he didn't. She said, "Why don't you go with this girl?" And he said, "No, I can't go with her because we're just friends." We went to prom with just friends. Like, why don't you? It's weird, and it's weird how just her brother, which is what, 4 years younger than her, maybe 5, is that short a time is totally different now. The perspectives are different.
Well, you know why? It's because like they have to grow up with Instagram. I didn't grow up with Instagram.
That's true. Yeah.
Anything that they post in terms of prom or any kind of social event, like it's automatically everybody zones in on that's a thing. Hashtag, that person, that couple power name.
Prom 2K18.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, I mean, you think about, I can't imagine growing up with Instagram. I would.
No.
I feel for kids these days, and I've got an incredibly soft spot in my heart for outcasts, for people that, aren't really as welcome into society as or into friend groups as others because of growing up as that, but then also seeing it over social media and how how ravenous it is. Like, I mean, people are just so quick to just hop on these negative locomotives and just train through all these critical comments and negativity, and I just I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I would not want to do it, man. But
and that's the one. I'm not trying to make this about me whatsoever. This is about your creative process. But
let's flip the tables. I want to interview you.
Okay. Well, the thing that I'm starting this podcast, I've had more negative things said about it than positive things. But the negative things. My mom. No, I'm just kidding. My mom she's been very supportive. My mom she told me yesterday, she was like, "Do you think that you could get Tim Tebow on your podcast?" And I was like,
yeah,
I probably can. Let's call him up.
Yeah.
Timbo, what's up? But the people that are most negative are those right here. Like right in your area of friends, or but the ones that are most supportive are your friends that are kind of far off. Like I have a friend in Tennessee, and she's all for it. She was all for Caleb over here. He's all for the podcast, and I just found that interesting. How people from far off,
they've boxed you. I know who Connor is because I see Connor. I'm with Connor. I know Connor. Connor can't do something like this. This isn't Connor. Like, I'll be honest, bro. Whenever you first reached out to me, that's why I was like, Connor Hatton, like Connor Hatton, like West Monroe Connor Hatton.
Yeah.
Because you just didn't see it coming. Now, because of that, that's why I love it so much. Is because I didn't see it coming, and I enjoy that you're probably stepping out of a comfort zone right now by doing this. But the people that have boxed you, the ones that know you so well, they're thinking, man, that's not Connor. When really, like, you stepping out of that box, this is that position that you place yourself where that process of creativity absolutely can happen because you are absolutely going against the flow. You are going against kind of the Connor status quo. And I love it. Kudos, man. Haters make you greater.
Oh, come on. What's that High School Musical when they sang "Stick to the Status Quo"? That
my wife is a huge High School Musical fan, so I'm looking at her right now.
Oh, you can if you want to sing a couple of runs, you can. What are some tools or tricks that you do? I've listened to you teach a couple of times, and even seeing you at camps with the late night stuff. You can take a concept like I know you did, what was it? The red room with photography. Is that what's called a red room?
Yeah, the dark room.
The dark room, not the red room. The dark room. You took Jenga, the game Jenga, and you made it into like this inspirational team building message. What do you read books? Do you listen to other podcasts? I mean, what?
I wish I could tell you I read books. I try so hard. I do. I really, really do. All of my good friends that do incredible things, they read books. And here I am. I'm like, I have to try and keep up with it. It was like, yeah, I've heard of that book. Can I watch the movie though? Would that give me? Yeah. I try. I do. I read very, very little. I'm trying. That's one of my resolutions actually, is trying to read more. But it's not books for me. I enjoy podcasts. I've got a few that I listen to, and they're more kind of like leadership based. I like a few NPR podcasts just because I like the journalism behind it. Mm-hmm. In terms of tools and stuff like that, I guess honestly I would use you as an example right now and say whatever kind of goes against what you normally do or normally would be a part of. If there's anything that you're exposed to, obviously that's not going to get in the way of your walk with God. Like I'm not saying, right, hey, you went to a Muslim mosque, let's check this out. Like, no, I'm saying things that you wouldn't, but there's like a small little bit of interest, like just go for it. Like listen to that podcast or read that book because you're going to get a perspective, because that's all it all just boils down to perspective. Like you look at Jenga as a game, but if you just kind of step back and look at the actual fundamentals of Jenga and look at it from a different perspective of actually what is happening and not how to win, then kind of an illustration can be brought out of it. Like when you look at building a house, as something as this is what I want to live in, this is what I want to grow a family in, but then you look at how God said that upon this rock I will build my church. We look at ourselves as like builders of church. I've got to bring people to the house of God. I've got to do this. I've got to preach. I've got to do this. God said, I'm going to build my church. Okay, what is his church? His church is his body. We are his body. We are the temple. And so really, the best way to grow a church is by building your own house, building your temple. And if we focus more on us being a better temple, then we become better lights and better grains of salt in the earth, to where now building the church in terms of numbers and growing a church, we know it's not our responsibility. It's just if we take on the responsibility of building our house with a nice foundation built on the word, built with prayer, framing it up and separating and making sure that different pieces and parts of our lives are all still on that same foundation, and that there is nothing in our life that we open ourselves up to that goes outside of that foundation, because any frame that's not on that foundation ultimately doesn't stand with the house. And then as you build that, the ceiling, you are covered. What are you covered by? The Bible says that the name of Jesus is a strong tower. So you got the name of Jesus. What else? It says that we are covered by the blood. So we plead the blood over this temple, over this house. And that's like, you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like, so you just, you look at things in a different way.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, Lin-Manuel Miranda, he wrote this incredible musical, Hamilton, because he picked up a biography of Alexander Hamilton and he read it. It's nothing that he would have ever read before in his life. It caught his eye and he read it, fell in love with it, and just continued. And it opened up this whole world of a musical that he wrote that is now like critically acclaimed and all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. But only because he saw something, was intrigued by it, opened it up, checked it out, and then just it brought in another perspective. Perspective.
Yeah.
The more that you talk to people, creativity, if you open yourself up to really know people and get their perspective on stuff, I'm not talking social media arguments. I'm not talking about, getting into whether it should have been this president or that president, whatever. All that's for the birds. People. Like, get somebody's perspective on something. Like, I love talking to older people, to like grandmas and grandpas that are part of that, what they call the greatest generation, because they built their lives on this, just sitting around a table and talking. Not one time have either of us looked at our phones. Not one time have either of us really like checked on social media for anything. This has all just been built on solid conversation. Yeah. And they are able to tell stories in a way that we ultimately, like, they are going to be the last ones that tell stories the way that they do, because it's literally what they did all the time. They didn't have any other thing. I mean, sure, they had like TV and radio, but all of it was to continue to tell stories that they would then spread abroad, whatever. But to listen to seniors and elders talk and listen to them about their childhood and listen to how they describe things, I love that, because they do it in such a different way than I ever would. And it just broadens that mind, that broadens your horizon in terms of how you think and your perspective. And but yeah, and so in terms of tools, like I know I'm like not really answering the question.
No, that's
but
fine.
Just anything that helps just change your perspective a little bit. And now, okay.
And I think you did answer the question. I mean, that is a tool to use. I mean, broadening your perspective of things. And
I'll use this as I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just got this. To me, is why mission trips are so amazing. I've been on 17 mission trips.
Wow.
And I believe if there's anything that has changed my life, it has been those mission trips, because they allow me to see in a completely different way, a way that I could never even create or imagine within the scope of American living. And very much they broaden not only your perspective of the world, but your perspective of God. Why is that? Because right now, I can only see, like if Caleb were to turn himself, I could see the left side of Caleb's face. I can tell that it's Caleb, but I'm only seeing a part of Caleb. I'm only seeing one half of Caleb's face. However, whenever I get up and I geographically alter myself to see the other side, it's still Caleb, but it's a part of Caleb that I can't see from this point of view. It's the same thing with God. When you go on a mission trip, whenever you geographically move yourself to another part of the world, you are changing your perspective of how you can see God, and you can see God work in different ways that you can never see him work where you are. And it completely opens up and transforms your entire perspective. Oh, God. Your entire perspective of God, because of that choice to alter where you are geographically. And so the same thing with creativity. It's just perspective, just changing perspective.
Getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your box.
Getting out of the box and starting a podcast.
Full circle, baby. Yeah.
Boom. Like it.
All right, so we've we've been going a while now, and it's been good. This has been I think this is going to be a great first episode. I just want to toot your horn and my horn. This is a good episode.
I'd rather you not toot my horn.
You're right. That was a weird way to say that. We lost all the listeners right there. Now
get your hands off my horn.
Get your filthy paws off my horn.
Okay, hands, right?
Hands.
I wanted so bad to do just like, it's like a Vine video idea, which I know Vine is dead, but I want so bad to do a video where like these two guys get into it and they say, "You about to catch these hands, bro?" And the guy's like, "I'm about to catch these hands," and then like the other guy literally like takes prosthetic hands and throws them at him so he can catch those hands. Okay.
Oh gosh, that's funny. So I was asking around. And I was like, what's a story that I can bring up during the podcast to Ask Taylor? And they said, ask him about Ice Pick.
Yeah, dude, Ice Pick.
Ice Pick. I don't know what it means.
Ice Pick.
I didn't ask for the story. I wanted to hear it.
Listen.
What is Ice Pick?
Man. Oh man, Ice Pick. The legend of Ice Pick. It started. I graduated from LSU, and I got a job offer that brought me to this company in Fort Myers, Florida. And for those of you that don't know, Fort Myers, Florida is retirement central. Like literally, it's where old people move to die because they are done with their job. They're done with their life. They want to move to Fort Myers where they got a nice beach.
I think that's all of Florida.
Yeah,
That's just a big retirement home.
No, Fort Myers is like literally, it's nothing but retirement communities.
Oh, really?
Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
It's retirement communities and a ton of Applebee's because old people love Applebee's, and so they move here, and like they're like the consensus of like younger people, I would say in terms of Fort Myers, Florida, you're looking at like 30 to 40% of the population that are under the age of 55, 60. No young people, none whatsoever. And so this company is in Fort Myers, because they're trying to like play on that and say, we can be, not only can you work here, but you can also be a part of like, reviving the youth of Fort Myers, blah, 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 whatever. It was a job. And so I went there and there was no barbershops that were like, because this is the time where I was like major into like the fade and like the
how old were you whenever you moved out there?
Yeah, I was 22. 22.
Okay.
And it was 2013, so 22. And so there was no young barbers. It was just a bunch of like old geezers with like, they're
beauty
just
salons.
wanting to do these like just like straight scissors.
Oh yeah.
And like these awful haircuts that I just like. My first haircut I got there, I was like, oh man, I looked like alfalfa, like straight up, like Little Rascals. Like I looked awful, man. And so I was like, I gotta find me a better barbershop. So I found this place. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a straight up in the hood, like African American, however you want to say it, just barbershop, like that type of old school, like nothing but these like fresh black dudes cutting hair, people coming in and out,
Ice Cube, Cedric the Entertainer,
exactly,
Queen
like
Latifah,
that type of environment. And this dude, he wore a parka. This dude wore a parka in Southern Florida and cut my hair. That should have been my first red flag. I didn't even think about it. And so he cuts my hair, and bro, he did a great job. Because, they know how to fade, dude. He had the fade looking fresh. He had my what was that thing at the time? The pompadour looking fresh. And so
pompadour. I don't know if that is that
pompadour
what you have.
Yeah, kind of like what Caleb's got,
like the Macklemore thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
That's when this was like huge, right? Yeah. And that's what I wanted. And so I got my pompadour, got my fade, and so he ends with like, "So dog, you want some ice picks?" I was like, ice pick? He's like, bro, I promise you. He's like, they fresh. He's like, I'll hook you up some ice picks. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm fresh. I'm a fresh dude. I'll gladly accept your ice picks. So,
I think I got expelled for this one time. I don't want to be part of this.
Oh, yeah, that's $5.95 in the ice picks. No, and so I'm like, yeah, give me some ice picks.
Yeah.
And so he then goes on to take a zero razor and shaves my sideburns to where they come down to my earlobe to a point. So, like, they literally look like an ice pick on the side of my head. And I'm looking in the mirror.
Oh, my God.
And I'm not about to tell this guy that thinks that this is the freshest thing on planet Earth that this is look bag. So I'm looking, exactly. I'm not about to tell this guy to park up to shave my ice picks off that he so highly recommended. So I'm looking in that mirror. I'm like, I got them ice picks. And so I go to work the next day. And literally, my manager, he looks at me, he's like, what happened to your head? I was like, what you mean? He was like, why does it look like your sideburn is about to stab me? I was like, oh, you mean my ice picks? My ice picks don't
ice picks?
So then from then on, my name at work was Ice Pick.
Oh my God. That is
I shaved them off like 2 days later because I did not want to be Ice Picks.
I'm just thinking that if you just couldn't shave them off yourself, you just had to go to work. But that's funny. That's funny. All right, so I want to end with this. The closing question is, before I say it, I want this podcast to be a podcast for everybody. Mm-hmm. I want it to be a podcast for if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to be a minister, if you want to be school teacher, whatever you want to do, I want somebody to get something out of this.
Right.
Everybody gets something out. Young, old, seasoned, new in whatever field you're in. But the last question I want to ask you is, what is a question that you have that no one's ever been able to answer?
I think you just asked it. I would like to ask you the same thing, Mr. Connor. Oh, a question that I have that no one's been able to answer.
Because I want people to listen to this and be like, oh, well, I have that answer. So here, let me tell you my answer. Oh. And it's like down the line, down the years, everybody's just answering questions, and everybody's like, oh, okay.
So then we're gonna leave with a question.
We'll leave
for
with
the listeners.
We'll leave with a question. We will, yeah. I mean, unless you want to talk about it and try to answer it, but
no, like not if I've never heard of it, because then that would just ruin the whole jive of this whole interview. Man, I'm gonna ask one that is not necessarily one to be answered. It's one that I ask myself on a pretty regular basis. Okay. It's like my pulse check, if you will, for life. And I use this for going all the way back to the beginning for how I am as a husband, to how I am as a leader, how I am as a Christian, and because it's just, to me, just something to really think about. And that question is, are you worth multiplying? Are you worth multiplying? Are you a person that you can look at in the mirror and say, I would gladly have 2 of me, 3 of me, 10 of me on planet Earth, based on who I am right now? And if not, what do you do to change that? How do you change yourself? How do you adapt? What is it that you need to transform in your life so that you are worth multiplying? So I would ask the listeners, are you worth multiplying? And if not, why? Because you can change. You can absolutely. You have every tool, everything within your power to be able to make yourself somebody that you would look at and proudly and gladly say, with a full heart and mind, I would absolutely multiply myself. So,
great answer. Great question and great answer.
Well,
so All right. Well, that has been the first episode of the Blue Mug podcast. Let's dink it and call it a day.
Dink it.
That's
Dude,
it.
Connor, you're the man.
Thank you so much, Taylor, for being on.
Thank you, Connor. This has been awesome.
This has been awesome. Oh, dink it. Okay. So that was episode 1. Episode 1 of the Blue Mug podcast. Again, I know that there was a lot of tapping. There was the audio wasn't the best, and for that I apologize. But we're learning. We're trying to do our best. But yeah. So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Again, if you want to hear more, subscribe. If you don't, subscribe. If you don't care, subscribe. It's not gonna hurt. Okay. Anyway, well, that's it for me. That's it for episode 1 of the Blue Mug podcast. Next Monday, episode 2 with, should I tell you? I don't know if I should tell you. I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to, okay, I'll tell you. Fred Foster, Dr. Fred Foster. He's going to be on the show. And it's good. That's a good one. I really enjoyed that one. We talked about his time in the Navy, his experience becoming a Christian, and it's a lot of wisdom in that episode. So that's it. Episode 1 in the bag. Let's move on. I'll see you in episode 2. Peace.